Is there a better coach in the country in any sport right now than Dan Hurley? You're Locked On UConn.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. A little housekeeping for me. Your YouTube support has been amazing. We're getting up close to 2,500 subscribers in pretty much less than 4 months. So, guys, amazing. I'd love to have all of those subscribers also download the audio version wherever you get your podcasts. It's equally as important for helping the channel and the Locked On UConn audience grow. So if you can do me two quick favors, first click that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen and then head over to Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Hit that follow button. This way you'll never miss a moment of Locked On UConn. I can't tell you how much your support means to me. It's everything. If you're tuning in from your car, once you finish the show, please drop us a 5-star review. Good reviews trigger those referrals for similar shows where people can get some new audience members or who are interested in more UConn content. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Today we welcome in Jeff D Lowe of Barstool, host of the Dozen Trivia, Emmy winner and Connecticut native, self-proclaimed two-time Connecticut's chubbiest baby. That's true. You can look it up. Jeff, is there a better coach in the country in any sport than Dan Hurley? All right, we're going to bring in Jeff D Lowe. I jumped the gun. He wasn't quite on, but he's on now. So let's bring him on. Jeff, thanks, dude. Thanks for coming on. Let me ask you this question. I opened the show by asking, is Dan Hurley the best active coach of any sport? Still active. You know, we had some guys, some pretty incredible coaches or legends retire recently. So kind of that mantle is up for grabs. Do you think he's up there or do you think he needs more time?
No, I don't think he needs more time. I don't think he needs more time to be up there. I think he's up there. I'm trying to think across the board. I mean, there's some studs. I mean, there's some studs across all the sports. College football obviously had some guys drop out. Obviously, college basketball dropped out in the last couple years. But I mean, I would say, I mean, the debate in terms of college basketball for me, I think it's him or Bill Self. I'm a longtime Kansas hater, an all-time Kansas hater. They used to blow it Bradley, Bucknell back in the day, but he is his recruiting skills are like, I don't know how they exist. The fact that he can get the players he gets now in the portal too. They have like 40 guys next year he got from the portal. I think they got to cap him at some point. It's unbelievable. So I think it's a debate there. I think he's top 10. Andy Reid is
that's true.
Andy Reid's approved. Like you look at that. Obviously Belichick's not active technically right now. He's active, but he's not on a team.
He's not coaching.
I would say right now in all of sports across the board, I mean, like, he's top 10 because there's just some guys who have done things for a long sustained amount of time. A Popovich, I was talking about the other day with someone, a Spoelstra. Steve Kerr, but he's in there. I think it's like what I think. It's actually funny if he wins again this year. Now it's a different discussion. That's that's unbelievable,
right?
But like for me with Hurley, I almost want to see him. I don't want to see them lose. Like what he does the year after this year if they don't win, right? Like and the recruiting. Like I'm sure we'll get into it. I'm sure you've talked about it plenty on your show. I know you have. Is that UConn's name is in the discussion for recruits now in a way that, I mean, we've never like really seen, at least especially since like the Calhoun days, like since the Rudy Gay days, like their name is on every recruit. Like their name is mentioned by everybody, which is, for me, that's almost as much an indicator of how good Hurley is as the 2 titles, which is kind of nuts. But in the world of college sports, that is kind of how it is.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I also can kind of, the only pushback I would give you is like especially for the NBA guys. And listen, Popovich, Kerr, multiple titles, been able to manage different egos. I get all of that. I think the nature of the 2 titles and the way that they've won, it's not
it's almost more than 2. Like it's kind of obvious. Like saying he won 2 is a disservice almost.
Well, it's based off of like how dominant they've been. It'd be like if if you took the UNLV teams that were so dominant in the past, but they won back to back, and they were coming in potentially winning a third. Like this hasn't been done since John Wooden. Like, when I think about that, that's why I even had the audacity to kind of think about the question, because he's definitely you can't argue. You can make an argument, but it's not a strong one in my opinion, right? Because NBA is it's a totally different world, and I guess some of it is luck, but at what point does luck go out the window when you're beating everybody by 20 points?
Right, that's very true. Which that is the thing. It's like, and I think you saw some of the quotes even after the season. Who said it? Was it Baycott said it, right? He mentioned, like, he was talking about Duke and NC State, and he's like, it wouldn't have mattered who would have gone anyway. UConn was just that much better, which they just were.
Yeah, and I mean, he saw it firsthand when they took it to him in an early season game, and
it's the most impressive 2-year stretch for a college coach, and I would include college football, and I would include college football. The most impressive 2-year stretch for a college coach this century, I think, no doubt.
Yeah, I mean,
Billy Donovan, who just brought back 5 NBA guys, basically. Still impressive to win it again, and to do it in a way that was beat a really good UCLA team in the Final Four, beat an Ohio State team with an Odin and Connelly, who they probably would have beat anyone else in the country, and to beat them twice that year. They beat him because they beat him in December as well. But I would give it to Hurley, no doubt. This century, best 2-year stretch.
For sure. And we'll keep it on Dan before we get to the next segment. If he's talked about it, he eventually does want to go to the pros. And he went on Dan Patrick. I thought he did a million radio spots, including on Barstool, kind of detailing his saga, right? I think the last one for me, the Dan Patrick show, was the most illuminating, because he did say, like, pretty openly that peak at what the Lakers might have been was enough to satisfy the itch for a few years at least. So if he does go to the NBA, let's say 3 or 4 years from now, how many more titles they win, if they don't win another title, what do you think he has to do differently as a pro coach in those next 3 years to kind of prepare himself? Whether it's the Lakers, Sixers, Knicks, like, what would you, let's say you're an advisor of his, how would you advise him to kind of make the switch? You watch a lot of NBA. I'm curious your thoughts.
I mean, it's so much of it's getting the right guys, which is what he does now too, which is kind of like, he kind of treats it like the NBA now in a way. It's like they will, and you go back to that, you've heard recruits say that recently. Mm-hmm. They're like, being recruited by UConn is not just to, like, hey, I'm top 5, hand out the offers. Like, they're like, if they're recruiting me, they only recruit a specific type of player. So his mindset and style is doesn't have to be very different in that sense. But the NBA, it's obviously trickier. And it's a competitive world where, I guess sometimes, the coach does matter a lot, but sometimes it's just like a guy can just be the guy that dominates you. And it's weird, because you see some players who like to be coached that way and some who don't. A very funny example is LeBron, obviously. The Lakers pursued him. LeBron talked very highly of Hurley on his podcast with Reddick. And I know there's always a joke of, like, LeBron GM or LeBron doesn't like his coach, but LeBron is a guy who, whether people want to hear it or not, he's a guy who does like to be coached hard. Whether he's helped and wanted those guys in place is another story, but some of his best stuff you've ever seen is from one great coach in Spoelstra, Coach Krzyzewski when he's on Team USA. So, like, you can still find those superstars who want to be coached hard. I also think the thing is that he's just a likable guy, because, like, he coached you hard, but he's also a guy that likes his players, and that's why they like him. He's not, which is kind of what you heard about Saban too, right? Like, those guys would ride or die for Saban. And yes, all the clips are yelling, and the clips of Hurley yelling too, but they fucking love him, because in the end, like, because like at the end of the year when they won a title, you'd always see Saban crying or smiling. Like, he loved that shit. So I think I don't know if he has to do that much else different, because he's kind of running the ship like an NBA team now as it is. Except you could also just inherit a team that will never work. It could just be a dumpster fire franchise, and it does not matter who you are. That's the problem with the pros.
No, you're right. It's because we when this all went down, we talked about how crazy it is. Like, Frank Vogel won a title in 2020, right? And he's gone. I said if Dan Hurley won a title in 2020 and never did anything else at UConn, they'd build a statue for him. So there's such a difference in, what have you done for me lately in the NBA? So I definitely feel you on that.
He's going to go, and I will not blame him whatsoever when he does. He's done more than enough. He's done a lifetime's worth of work the last 2 years.
For sure.
Which is crazy to imagine if after that New Mexico State game, someone said in 2 years you will be a lifetime worth of happy with what Dan Hurley. I'd be like, what does that even mean? Does that mean they go back to back? Like, you're an idiot. And then sure enough,
no, you're spot on there. We're going to talk about a team that's playing, and actually we're recording in 15 minutes. The Stars of Stores of the TBT coming up after this. Hey, UConn fans, summer is perfect for catching a Major League Baseball game. I love the ballpark. One of the best memories is a walk-off home run at a Yankee game with Don Mattingly back in the day. So I'm looking forward to more great moments, and Gametime is where you get to find great tickets. Gametime is an authorized MLB Picket marketplace, and prices on Gametime actually go down, not up as the game gets closer. Perfect for last-minute plans. Found amazing deals for Gametime using for MLB games for the Yankees, Red Sox, Mets. You can find it all. Check out Gametime for easy, convenient ticket buying. Great deals. Download the app and make unforgettable memories. Download the Gametime app. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. All right, Jeff's back with us. That wasn't the greatest promo for Gametime, but you get the picture.
Love Gametime.
Yeah, I love the app. Stars of Stores. It's the 11th year of the TBT. I've loved the TBT for every year it's been on. Sometimes the basketball is not that great, but it's just cool seeing alumni teams, guys that can get back from playing in Europe to kind of play a different, an interesting style. Back in the first iteration of TBT, you could actually like ride with the team, and if they were like an underdog, you won money. This is pre like FanDuel, DraftKings, etc. Like I forget what team I picked, but I think I lost in like the semis. But if they won, I got a share of the $1 million prize, right? So they haven't done that because now you can bet on everything. So how familiar are you with the TBT? Have you watched any of the Stars of Stores? They destroyed the first team they played. A bunch of semi-pro guys that were playing in the ABA here in the States. What do you think?
So I saw their game the other day. I mean, they kill me. They just some legends on that team. Some of my favorite UConn players. Pretty familiar. Barstool had a team way back in the day. I don't know. I think relationship soured actually at one point. But funny team. I think Dante Jones is on the team. Cavs championship legend. 2016
summer league coach of the Clippers too.
Yeah. So. No, it's just cool to see those guys together and just playing, and also playing and winning in an arena that they didn't really win in. Some of those guys in Pittsburgh, so that was good to see.
Yep,
nice seeing UConn wins there. So,
yeah, for sure. They're playing. I think they're playing the Happy Valley team, so Penn State alumni. That'll be interesting here. I don't know what the line is.
People hate it. People hate when I say it, but I will never ever have any association with that basketball team. I always say I paid 4 years full tuition to choose not to root for that team, and I never will. So
I love it. I love it. Who would you want to see? Like there were some guys like Niels Giffey who just played Germany. He played for the Olympic team that gave USA a tune-up here that we're going to talk about at the end of the show. Like he couldn't do it. I know that Mark DeMille and his folks reached out to him, and he was like, I may make the Olympic team. So I'm like a maybe. So of the guys that play in Europe, some guys that like aren't in the NBA anymore, who would you want to see play in this next year?
I love a lot of the guys from the late 2000 teams. Like I love seeing Jeff Adrian out there. I love seeing, obviously Jerome Dyson is the all-time UConn what if in the last 20 years. Which I say they would have won. That might be lofty because that UNC team was really fucking good. They were very, very good, and there's really no denying that. But someone like the late 2000s guys I like to see, like I don't know if they'd be, if they're going to be in game shape to do it, like the Denham Browns of the world, even like the mid 2000s guys, like the teams that got snake bitten. That's what I like seeing out there. Like team that like lost to George Mason, like those guys, couldn't finish off a run. Like again, like the 2009 team. But even a couple of the guys on the team now, I just love seeing them out there. DeAndre Daniels, another all-time what if. Like, what if he'd stuck around for a little longer?
One more year,
So dominant in his run. Joey California sat next to him at the Alabama game. Sat next to him and his dad. Talk about a quick, short legend, but a legend indeed. So yeah, no, it's neat seeing these guys, especially some of the ones that are going to eventually play from these past two teams too.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I think that's part of it too, and I think
they just want to be in the NBA at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see I'd love to see Shabazz come back and play because I know he's been playing in Monaco. Yeah. I know Mark put out a tweet a while back about Rudy Gay. That was kind of up in the air because as much as I love Jeff Adrian, and I hope he doesn't watch this because he's one of my all-time favorites. I literally have his jersey. Like, it's not a Ben Gordon jersey; it's a Jeff Adrian jersey, number 4 UConn, and he just looks slow because he's old, and that's okay. I'm older than him, and I certainly would look awful if I played basketball right now. So, I think he's out there, and it's great. I hope they win. But
Hilton Armstrong was playing pro ball just 3 years ago.
Would love to see him. Yeah, Hilton Armstrong.
That's what I'm checking. I'm checking out like who's played recently enough that they could suit it up. I mean, why not? Mecca obviously.
Kemba.
Yeah, I would love. I mean, that's I mean, anytime you put Kemba on any association with UConn, I'm going to be all for that.
Absolutely. I mean, why not? I mean, there's no reason why you wouldn't. He doesn't have to play. I mean, I think the best thing is they did bring up some ringers, right? They got this guy Elijah Maxwell who played at Clemson in 2019. I mean, you need it. Like, every team brings on like a couple of kids, essentially like in their mid to early 20s, who just aren't NBA players, but are really good basketball players. This kid, Gaston, who played for Baylor, they dominated that team. So hopefully that continues. And
Craig Austry, that's
Craig Austry would be great too. Yeah, that's another good one.
There's some fun names. I mean, again, so there's some out there already who I definitely would have like taken in my first pick. But yeah, there's some other ones. Yeah, this is going through these lists. Roscoe Smith, yeah, it's fucking.
I think Roscoe plays for a different team. I think he played on a different TBT team, to be honest with you, because I know he transferred out. Alex Oriaki doesn't play anymore.
True, that's true. I guess does that though. I mean, if you win a title with the UConn threads on that.
Yeah, you I don't know. I guess. I mean, I know Tyler Olander's coaching. He's doing the right thing and saying, "Listen, I'm a little older. I'm a little, I don't."
They should still start him though. Every game should start with him on the floor and sub him out just in like 1 minute. Yeah, keep the tradition alive.
UConn Twitter did a GOAT top 10. I don't know if you saw that. So literally one account. I can't think it off the top of my head. They're going to kill me over it, but. He posted like, okay, I'm gonna give you guys like 2 weeks. Do your ballots, and there were tons of ballots, older guys, younger guys. So obviously you can tell like the top 3 essentially was all over the gamut, right? Who's like your Mount Rushmore? I won't ask for like a top 10 because we don't want to sit here for 30 minutes. But who's a Mount Rushmore for UConn basketball on the men's side? GOAT being your last
Mecca.
person. Okay.
A Mecca is up there. I mean, I obviously do my lifetime, though my lifetime spans all the titles. So I'll do a Mecca for sure. Kemba for sure.
Mm-hmm.
It does get tough. It gets tough.
It's ridiculously tough.
Nobody recently, I would say, yet. It's kind of crazy to say that Tristan Newton's close, but I wouldn't say anyone recently yet. And that maybe just like anti-recency bias. Mm-hmm. Newton's up there like that. He's to do that and to into so is Klingon. Like, see that's one like I actually don't know who you pick there because Klingon has the advantage of being the Connecticut homegrown guy, and you could argue that him being a top tier recruit and coming in and doing that kind of paved the way. But what's more traditional than like a scrappy UConn, like a guard who proves it and then just goes out and wins a title? From there, I mean, it's tough. See, like my personal Mount Rushmore,
Yeah,
I
do
would
it.
have probably Khalid El-Amin on there. Like UConn basketball
Love
to
it.
me is Khalid El-Amin. That's just like my guy growing up. But like realistically speaking, you probably have to put like for me, probably put Rip on there.
Rip. Yep.
And then
The
probably
top. Go
probably
ahead.
Shabazz. I said Shabazz,
Okay.
Kemba, Rip, and a Mecca.
The most slander that was on this list was Shabazz wasn't in a ton of top fives, which I think is slanderous.
That is crazy. He was relevant on both. He wasn't even just like on both. He was very relevant on both title teams.
I don't have the list in front of me, but I can guarantee. I number one was Kemba, but like by like this much. Number two was Rip. 3, I believe, was Ray Allen. 4 was Mecca, and I forget 5. I don't think Tristan made the top 5. But here's the thing: the beautiful thing I love about these lists is, I think you're younger than me. Some guys are older than me. They all have different thought processes. Like I had to put Chris Smith in my top 10. I had a guy on who's I think you saw him maybe at the Final Four. It wasn't Little Red. It's Big Larry. And so Big Larry and I are similar age. I think he's like 2 or 3 years older than me. And we were like literally talking about how if you don't get Chris Smith, you probably don't get Scott Burrell. So like the building blocks of the teams. So the fact that Chris Smith wasn't in some people's like thoughts or lexicon just shows their age, not their, their hatred of it or whatever. It's not the same thing. So I feel like it's the LeBron Jordan debate. If you grew up with Michael Jordan, you're going to have the bias that he's the greatest of all time. If you grew up watching LeBron and didn't watch Jordan only for tapes, you just can't understand the impact. So that to me was really interesting about that debate. So there's really not a lot.
Title makes it a very tough debate because
of course,
Ray Allen should probably be up there too. Like right, but like
he didn't
all
win
these
one.
other guys have titles. But then like the funny thing about UConn too is with some of these teams is there's so many of their titles, especially the last couple of years, are guys who played a role. And like that Mount Rushmore, like that changes me. That's Rashad Anderson. Sure. That's Jake Foskell. I put a bunch of different guys up there.
Charlie Villanueva 1 year was incredible.
Right. Like there's a laundry list of guys who you would put on there who, I mean, Talik Brown, like some of those moments too. Yeah.
And another guy like that was incredible, and he's by no means a role player, even though everyone plays a role, is Ben Gordon was on a lot of top 10 lists. Yeah. He was on a lot of top 5 lists. I mean, the guy was incredible. It's just, I mean, Madison Square Gordon is one of the coolest freaking nicknames of all time. So like, yeah, I mean, it's such an interesting exercise. If you ever want to do it, I mean, just like really think about who your top 10 is of all time. I'd be interested. Just DM me that because I'd be curious. Just everyone's kind of ballot was different, and I finally was just like, the hell with it. I'm going to do it. I put it out there, and I definitely fibbed to Chris Smith, who I had on the show. I was like, he's in my top 5. And then when I actually did the exercise, I was like, I can't put him in the top 5. And it's crazy to me that I can't because I grew up watching. He was like, the way you think about Khalid El-Amin is the way I think about Chris Smith. And Khalid El-Amin was in my top 10 too because I'm built like Khalid El-Amin. That's my guy. Like he's short, chubby, like could move a little bit. He was
the heart of
that guy.
That 99 title team. Like he is the face and the heart, even though obviously like a lot of other guys.
100%. But yeah, no, 100%. I mean, the first thing you see when you put those highlights on is we're going to shock the world. Like he was that guy. Like he was incredible. Well,
the interesting debate. I'll tell you what, the Kling and Newton debate is going to be very interesting in that sense. And obviously Alex Karaban. No disrespect to Alex Karaban, but his story is not complete yet, so I don't really say that yet. But the difference there is like I don't. That's tough. That's a very tough debate there because obviously Newton was significantly more impactful. The first title, Klingenhoff's coming off the bench, and someone could argue that Sanogo's another guy you should probably talk about too. So
yeah, without a doubt. Well, I'm not asking Jeff this, but are you guys watching the Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? I have to turn down the volume with all that shouting. Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels that part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. When we return, I'm going to ask Jeff this because we had a little exchange on Twitter. Why it's okay for Team USA to give me zero effort. coming up after this. I didn't even plan this when I asked you to jump on, because I've been trying to get a time for us to connect and talk UConn hoops. But as everybody that is if you're a UConn basketball junkie, you are literally right now clamoring for any sports. So what's on is TBT, women's WNBA. You got Team USA having these tune-ups, and I don't want you to think I'm one of these guys who's out here like throwing my beer at the TV, freaking out over the effort that I see. But it is a little striking because they did just have another close game against Germany.
Good team. Very good German team.
Again, yes. And I think there needs to be some context with this. When you start to think about the teams in the past, like when we started this whole dream team situation in 92, the international game was not where it is today. I mean, all you have to do is look at
8 years ago.
Right. But I'm saying all you have to do is even look at the NBA today, and the guys who are literally in the MVP conversation every year are mostly from Europe. So the guys, and even Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is Canadian. So like the top three guys weren't US guys this year. But do you see that being any little bit of an issue? Because I feel like for me, when I think about guys with this big of egos on this team, that when it comes down to like the crunch time games, there's no lose and you go home in these. It's like, and I think LeBron's been incredible. Like he's been clutch the last two games. But do you think that they can recreate that if it gets tight in Paris?
Funny enough, they've actually kind of shown it the last two games, which is kind of a small, I call that the UConn women conundrum. They never played a close game, and they got in a close game, and they kind of shit their pants. Now, I don't think it would have mattered for the men, because for the USA men, because they all play their individual close games. It was nice to see like who they're going to go to, and they're going to go to LeBron, obviously. Which, if you're experienced in the FIBA game, that helps a lot. Which you've seen that with Embiid.
Sure.
Embiid has struggled significantly adapting to FIBA rules, which is, their rules are crazy. They're very different than the NBA, just in terms of just like swatting the ball off the rim, like just that alone.
That's
is a
cool.
Crazy change. That was like the first game or second game I saw Embiid like signaling something. I was like, buddy, they can do that. I have just no concerns about them. They're in a weird spot too, where even compared to the last couple, so the showcase 3 years ago, Miley doesn't count because it was a completely different team. It was the USA's B team. They sucked. They got their ass kicked. Like they lost, I think 2 or 3 games. Lost to Nigeria, a team who they beat like 2 previous Olympics ago by like 60 points. So they were bad then. Didn't matter. They won gold. But the team that had no business winning gold. Keldon Johnson was on that team. Like Langston Gallows was on that team. He was on like that team had no business winning the gold medal. Here now, they're playing these good teams, all of which are mostly in the Olympics. The only one that they play that's not in the Olympics, actually, no, they all are in the Olympics, which is rare because they often play a team that isn't in it.
Right.
Those teams have played together forever. Like this Germany team that played today, they have played together for 10 years, and they went into the game, and they played their guys, where the USA, like, Kerr's got to figure out what the hell to do with them. So they're not playing their full game, and I just don't have the expectation that they're out there and they're going to work their tail off. Now, they got snake bitten by that against Sudan, because South Sudan shot like UMBC Virginia. They shot like 65%. That was insane. So I guess they kind of got caught with their pants down a bit, and they're too prideful. But all the intangibles, I'm just not worried about. LeBron today hit the deck at the end of the game. Every single guy off the bench, KD, Anthony Davis, all the Celtics guys, like they were all over him, helping him up. They nominated him to carry the flags. Like none of that stuff just doesn't worry me, because I know they're going to lock in. They're going to play at a completely different level come next week. Like they're playing Serbia at the end of the week. They're playing them on Sunday. Mm-hmm. Serbia put their whole deck on the table like a week ago in this warm-up thing. They used to win by 40 points. I was like,
that was their best performance for sure.
Kind of baffles me that they did that. Granted, they didn't have Bogdanovic or Jovic, but they lost by 30 points, and they tried hard. Like they were taking charges in the first minute. The USA is trying to feel it out, which I think is just that's the context you need to put in there.
I understand that. Okay, so you just said something that I'm curious, like from a mentality perspective, is there nothing wrong with trying like really hard, even though it's an exhibition. The way you just mentioned, like Serbia tried really hard. Like Germany probably tried pretty hard today. I don't think
Very
Germany
hard.
like took the night off. You know what I mean? Like, so even though I know that they're likely going to win gold, like if you bet on USA to win gold, what is it like minus
They're very heavy
3,000?
favorites. Yeah.
Right. So I get that. But is there something wrong with the mentality that we're just going to kind of like feel it out and kind of see like it's still a
I guess my
competition?
comparison would be, would you say that about any NFL team or NBA team in the preseason? You wouldn't. It's a weird scenario where,
but it's not playing for your
USA,
country.
It's legitimately the preseason. Like this is as preseason. Like they've been together for a month, and they don't have the luxury that the Redeem team had in 08. That team had played together for a whole year because they played in the World Cup before that, and they actually lost. They won bronze, so they don't even have that luxury. And so with that sense, and KD's out still. KD's not like they didn't push KD, which would have been. I was actually worried they were going to play KD, which is completely pointless because KD's KD. You know what you're going to get. He's played in the Olympics before. He knows the FIBA rules. So yeah, none of that. Like, I just it's weird because I get what you're saying, and you want to see them put a whole game together, but they know that it starts next week, and that's when they can really show everything. And they're not going to have these 5 in, 5 out rotations where 5 plays for 12 straight. It's there's a clear way they're playing it, which unfortunately in our hot take social media world does not help them when they almost lose to South Sudan. But I just know it's something you're going to see next week. Like they turned it on for like that 5-minute stretch against South Sudan. They won like a 15-0 run. Like that's what you're going to see the whole way. But it's like if you're the coach, you really want to push them that hard all week, especially like the NBA season kind of just ended still too.
Sure. No, and I hear all of that. I really do. And I think the perspective of thinking about it from an NFL preseason game, if you're a third stringer, you're playing that like it's like your life's on the line. But if you're not, if you're the quarterback, you're like, I'm not playing. So I get that. I just think it feels different because we're talking about the Olympics and not just their regular job, which is to be a basketball player. So yeah, I mean, that's all. I just wanted to,
and I do think like what it is, but I think there's some people who legitimately looked at that game the other day and thought that the Olympics had started and that was an Olympic game. Like I do like.
It's fair.
Yeah,
I mean, people are pretty stupid. I get that. So, yeah, I mean, listen, never.
It's a weird situation though, because you like South Sudan, they're going to play the USA in their group, which I actually think I think it's worse for them. I think USA's going to smash the shit out of them now because they kind of played their best game they could against USA. But like they'll have 2 shots to play LeBron James ever. Some of these guys. And even Germany, it's a little different. They got Schroeder, they got the Wagners. Like they have some guys who play like Tice. They've got guys who played NBA ball. But like you don't get many shots to beat the USA. So they're going to play 100%. And the USA is like, look, we're still, I'm LeBron. I'm still trying to figure out what to do with Steph Curry. Can I hit him on a no look? Embiid's still learning the rules. So it's this weird conundrum. But I think they're going to be dialed. I think they're going to be dialed in. I'm excited. Steph Curry with a shorter 3-point line feels illegal.
It's true. It is shorter. It's like a foot shorter, right? Is that what it is?
I think crazy. It's like 22 feet. Which it was even shorter 12 years ago when Melo, because Melo's the greatest Olympic basketball player of all time. When Melo just went off in London, it was a college 3. It was an old college 3, basically.
Right. So 1909. Yeah.
That should not be allowed. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I hear you. No, and that's the thing is like it is what it is, man. Like I just hope they put it all together because I just don't want them to have the oopsie game and they're playing against like this Germany team who clearly can beat them if they're off. You know what I mean? So I don't think South Sudan would have to worry about. I think that was kind of like an anomaly.
Right. If they shoot 65% again, if you play anyone in basketball and shoot 65%, they're going to be in the game no matter who the fuck you are. Like that is crazy. They're going to scrap more. That's the other thing too. Like you're going to see like they're going to be on the deck. And I think right now they're just like, let's not get hurt before it's happened before. Yeah. So
I hear you.
Let's not do that.
Well, we'll let you get on your way. I really appreciate you, man. Of
course.
I definitely want to see that list. Send me a list. I want to hear your top 10.
I'm going to think about the next day. I got a flight in 2 days. That might be I might see. You can't give me a top 10 and expect anything but a top 20 from me. So
do it. Give me a top 20. I mean, there's plenty of guys to choose from.
Crazy list. Yeah, we'll have to talk again before the season starts.
Absolutely, man. we'll talk. Well, that's Jeff Lowe from Barstool. We'll see him again soon. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. It's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. This has been another episode of Locked On UConn. I'm your host, Mark Zanetto, for Jeff Lowe, asking you to stay locked in, stay connected. Make sure your toughness meter is always rising. And as always, go Huskies.